Hey guys, it's Sebastian again. So today I'm here back for our third episode here with Lost Hombres, which again is my podcast for men, and just to kind of talk about mental health problems and explore different topics that I think are relevant to helping people get through life, have better outcomes, better insight on approaching different problems that maybe they didn't know how to approach before, and a place to feel safe to ask questions and get clarification on different insights. So today I thought it would be interesting to talk about my life experience as a man, what I went through childhood all the way up until more modern present day, who I am, and some of the experience that have shaped my belief system and what it means to be a man, and really understand like the bigger picture of what our role is and what our purpose is, just from my perspective and my point of view, based on life experiences that I've had and the way I have found the most success in my life, in all the different ways that I've lived it so far. So kind of starting from childhood. My parents were in their 20s. Actually, my dad, I think, was 19 when he had me. So they were very young. My dad was in the Navy. He came from Indiana. My mom is from Tijuana, Mexico. And she was working over there in the States, cleaning houses and going to school for being a preschool teacher and some other things like an accountant and things. So she did a lot of like little odd jobs. I think worked at like Burger King at some point. So, but yeah, my dad was in the Navy, so he, obviously was doing his time in the military, and he was a aircraft mechanic, so he was often gone. Because he'd go on deployment, he often worked on the different carriers and stuff. So that was his role, being the big provider. And so I was born in 1991. So when I came along, their marriage was in an interesting place, as like just being young, um, both having struggles with mental illness because of their past and things that they've been through. An interesting fact about my mom, she had a bad vaccine at some point in her life where it actually gave her polio, and so she was given polio as a child, and that actually caused obviously health issues where she had to deal with that for the rest of her life. That just stunted her growth and some other things. So my mom's handicapped. So that's another element to the stories, that my mom grew up with a disability, and so she's always had that like pick yourself up root attitude, because she dealt with adversity coming also from a second, third world type of country, and also living with a disability. It's not very easy since you don't get really much assistance from the government at that point. So a lot of the efforts that they put in to help my mom, or just family, friends gathering together and working together. So my mom had a very like can do attitude in her system, so she was very much like that. And so she was very strong willed. And my dad's also very hard headed. And yeah, so they had me, and their marriage, very challenging. They're very a lot of passion, I will say. Both of them worked, so they were both hard workers. I'll never take that away from them. They always were like working and chores and doing stuff. So they were very active people. I will say that there was always something being done. So yeah, you definitely had a schedule you were gonna follow. That my dad was in the military, and my mom was a very OCD structure type of person. So there was always going to be a sense of structure in my life, throughout my life. So my parents, they raised us and had us in San Diego. So we were living there for the beginning of my life. So I grew up in San Diego, went to this elementary school called Rolando, which was really cool. Like that was a good time in my life. I felt like life wasn't so bad. Like we had like we had a couple dogs, we had a yard, like the house was pretty cool. I actually I like going to kindergarten and preschool and these things, because I made friends. I liked making friends. I definitely was a flirt as a kid. I'm not gonna lie. I was always like talking to the girls and liking to play games with them and hang out with them. So I was always like around chicks. So it was more fun for me to talk to girls. But I was always into sports and stuff. So I was always doing other things. I was always like a big Ninja Turtles fan, like playing ninjas, and like I had my fair share of like stuff that I like to do as a guy. I collected Hot Wheels. My dad collected Hot Wheels. So it was like my dad did it, teach me some things about what it means to be a man as far as like working hard and being disciplined. He was very much like getting up on time, crack of dawn, you're getting up. So a little bit about his background. He came from a farm in Indiana, grew with soy and corn, grew up with his grandfather, and his grandfather was very like very hard-headed, structured, very my way or the highway. My dad didn't know his dad growing up, and his mom was having her own problems, so she was dealing with stability issues. So it made his life a little more challenging. And he definitely had a temper and definitely, again, strong-willed individual. Very good when he wanted to do something, but had a hard time containing himself sometimes. And alcohol also wasn't a big friend of his because, yeah, that got him into a lot of situations and problems later on in life. So he always was drinking. Like my dad was always drinking. So he always had a six pack or something. There was always something. Alcohol was normal when my dad was around. So that was just something he grew up with. So our first couple of years was that like that. And then my brother came and woo, there was like a time in my life where I was like living in two different places, and I remember this vaguely, and I was like, okay. And my dad and mom were separated for a while, and then all of a sudden we were back together again. And then I had a brother. So yeah, then I had a little brother. His name's Cody, and so my brother came along, and now I'm a big brother, so I'm also taking care of him. And obviously, there's like a shift in like the way things play out. My brother was very ill when he was born. There was some health problems that happened for him. So my mom had like this attachment thing with him because he was like almost dead or he had like problems. And yeah, he just was had his own challenges, I would say. Like he was very spirited. He was a very spirited child, we'll say that. So he had a lot of passion. This child was he was the type of kid that would he was not afraid to bully his older brother. So I'd be chilling and he'd just come up and like, and then my mom would be like, just hit him back. I'm like, I don't want to hit him, he's my brother, I don't want to hurt him. Like, oh, why does he do this to me? I'll just say my my brother, he's special. Okay, we didn't know yet, but we found out later, but we didn't know. And yeah, so now I have this brother. I like being a brother. I like taking care of him. Initially, like I always had a baby with me. Like I always have baby. Like my mom allowed me to have a baby, so I always like take care of it. I'd be like taking it in a stroller places. I'd be taking care of my baby places. So I always wanted to be a father, even from a young age. I always wanted to take care of like a child. Like I had my baby. I'd be like, all right, I gotta take my baby places. So I literally had like a baby in a stroller that I would just take around, and he was my baby, and I had to make sure he was taken care of. So yeah, that father energy ran deep. My dad did like it, Obviously, he was like, "What's going on here?" But my mom's like, "Nah, like let him." And yeah, like I have to give her credit for that one. It's like she definitely advocated well there, and that was like a really good decision because again, we learn through play, so it's important for us to experience those things because they help us understand more of like how we can behave in these environments and what's healthy and what feels good because we're really in our feelings when we're that age. So a lot of things we do because it feels good for us. And so if we're having positive interactions with this doll, that means we're showing like this can feel good for me. So it's a good way to reinforce positive behavior. And you're teaching it in an organic setting. So they're seeking out this type of stimulation, which is healthy for them. And it instills that value system as they get older. So it's better for them to do it while they're young. But anyways, So yeah, my brother comes along. And I got a fucking brother, and he's a menace. And I always would get in trouble. He would do something, and I would get in trouble for it. They'd be like, "Well, you're the older brother," and I'm like, "I can't control this man. He is something. He's not controllable." Yeah, yeah, he plays a significant part in definitely my upbringing. But yeah, throughout our life, because it's obviously me and him most of the time. So then this crazy thing happens. So, oh yeah, my dad was also not there when I was born, so that was interesting. So he came. I think I was like 4 months old when he came, because he was part of the Gulf War back in the day. So when that happened, he came along 4 months later. So yeah, he wasn't there when I arrived, but he did come by at some point. So anyway, so then my dad, this crazy event happens. My dad has this accident with the car. So what ended up happening was he was like he was working on it. All right. And me and my brother this morning, we're like, how old are we? We were like 5 and 3, 4 and 1. We're not old. And we're like, Dad, we want to play the Sega. And back in the day, my dad was a little bit of a hacker. Okay. He knew how to work the systems. And he also traveled overseas. So he'd bring back these like devices from like wherever he went, Taiwan, Korea, like, where would he go to South Korea? I don't remember, but he'd go to different places back in the day. And he would be able to buy these products that you'd only be able to get because he's literally over there. So he'd bring home these like special edition devices and stuff. So, anyways, we had like this Sega Genesis, and me and my brother were like, let's play it. My dad's like, all right, let me finish the car, and then like I'll put it on for you guys. And we're like, yeah. So we had this window we could look out at. Well, all of a sudden, the truck starts to move. And it grabs my dad. And we lived on this gravel driveway. Okay. And then then the asphalt. So it pulls him and he starts getting dragged. Okay. He gets caught. The truck drags him. So he's getting dragged. Now, this isn't just any normal truck. This is an industrial steel caged truck for hauling material, because my dad wasn't like side handyman. He knew how to fix stuff. So he would go do side gigs as like a handyman, while being in the military. So he did his little like whatever, right? Had to feed the family, he was a low class, okay? So the truck is dragging him, throws him underneath the tire, and it goes like this. He's folded in half by this tire, and it's crushing him. He can't breathe, can't even move. He's stuck there. My brother like, what is going on? Like, we're just like, we don't know. We're young. Like, we're like, what is happening, right? My dad can't move. He can't breathe. He can't move. He's dying. So this guy is jogging, sees my dad, calls for help. They end up getting people to come out because the truck had hit the neighbor's fence and broke it. And when it popped up, it threw my dad under. And the tire went, boop, landed on him. Cracked his back in 3 places. So he couldn't move. The ambulance got there. They got there. I think they asked him, what do you want? He's like, a cigarette. He said he wanted a cigarette. They're like, sir, what? He's like, listen, I can't. I'm in a lot of pain. I just want a cigarette, please. I think they'd give him a cigarette. So that was like something that. And so what happened was they ended up taking him. Me and my brother are with this lady. I guess it's the neighbor at this point. I don't know who this lady is. And she's like, hi, kids. Your dad's going to the hospital. And we're just like, do we get to play the Sega? Like, oh, we don't get to play the Sega. Yeah, this is where we're at because we have kids don't think. So I'm just like, I want to play the Sega. No Sega today, son. So he has to go. My mom ends up showing up. We find out my dad at the hospital. So at this point, he has broken his back in 3 places. So he has to wear this this like sleeve, like this, I don't know, this whole body casing thing. Like he looks like Jason's mask on his entire body. Right? That's all I can ever think of when I saw him. I was like, that's like Jason's mask. It looked like a bionic man. And now he had to lay there for like months. I don't remember like what kind of surgery or what happened, but like, he had broken his back and they had to like. So, anyways, my dad is just out. And so this is like the first time we see my dad, just like, this guy was like a go, go, go kind of guy, right? And now he can't move. But yeah, they told my dad that he was going to be paralyzed, that he's never going to walk again. That's what they told him, right? Well, funny enough, my dad doesn't listen. So he started walking again and started moving his body again and continued on in the military and continued moving forward. So, yes, he is moving on in life. Now, at this point, I think we ended up, let's see, like, so we lived over there in like the La Mesa area. And then after that, we ended up moving to, well, actually before that, we lived in El Cajon, but I was too little to remember that. I don't remember that. And we ended up moving. So at this point, my dad's injured, but he got back to being healthy at some point, healthy enough to like keep going. And we ended up going to, I don't know if it was at this point Mexico. We might have been in Mexico by this point and being in down there. And my dad at some point, no, well, okay, so I got to tell you guys about a story about somebody else. So while I'm at Rolando, I joined this soccer place, this AYSO soccer team. And there was this mom who starts being the coach, but, it's her first time and she really didn't have a lot of experience. And she was mainly just doing it because like no other parent volunteered. So my dad starts helping her coach, and me and their son end up becoming best friends. So we are always together. And my dad and his dad ended up becoming best friends. So we're like starting to hang out with these people all the time and become very close family. They're like, I would call them my second mom and dad, so like that's how close of a family we become. I actually gave my children their last name. That's how close of a family they are to me. So they mean a lot to me. So, this family, we start hanging out with them. We start making connections with them. We start seeing them all the time because our parents are getting along. Everything's cool. And then we end up, I think, going to Mexico for a while because they're wanting to save money. And I think at some point, my dad ends up having to be stationed in Oklahoma because my mom didn't want to move. She's like, I'm not leaving. She married a guy in the Navy. And then she tells him, I'm not leaving. Anyways, I'm like, I don't understand why you would get to the military guy knowing well he literally has to move. Like, he has to live elsewhere. What are you thinking? You weren't thinking. You were just doing whatever you felt like, and then you paid for it. Anyways, so he ends up going to like Oklahoma. And at that point, we end up moving out there to Oklahoma. So like first, second grade, I was over there. And then we ended up going to Oklahoma, right? Is that what it was? To move out there with him. So like second and third grade is when I was in Oklahoma. Because like kindergarten, I don't even know if I was in preschool. I might have been in a preschool. I think I was. It was in La Mesa. I went to preschool in La Mesa. It's called Gray Rabbit or something like that. I think it might even be open still. But I went to preschool at Gray Rabbit. So that was pretty cool. I went to preschool with my mom. So like my mom was a preschool teacher. So I got to chill with my mom, and then like I got to hang out with like the same ladies for like the first couple of years of my life. And yeah, those were pretty significant years too, because I used to go bug collecting. I'd be looking for bugs and shit. Yeah, it was crazy. Like, yeah, and we had this big slide. One of those slides where if it got too hot, you'd melt your ass. Yeah, those are actually decent times. Like, I'm not gonna complain. It was interesting. Like all the ladies, everyone was cool. I used to play like computer games in the office because my mom was a worker there. So I'd be playing like like the mind game, like mind sweep, and like this one where you're like it's like one where you're like a skier and like an abominable monster comes out and tries to eat you and stuff. Those are pretty good games. I like those back in the day. So those are like some decent memories. If I had to have a couple, those are like pretty good, pretty good, pretty good. Then we ended up moving to Oklahoma. Oklahoma was interesting. I didn't mind it, but like it was a different environment for sure. Um, but I had a lot of freedom there. It's interesting. When I was in the city, I felt more limited by my parents. But when I was in the country or like in the suburbs, I guess you could kind of call Oklahoma City has like suburbia areas. We could like go out for hours. They wouldn't even care. We could walk to school. They didn't even like have fun. Take your bike. No care. City, where are you going? You're gonna die. Suburbia, nobody cares. Nobody cares. Yeah, we had a freedom out there. Like I don't know, it was interesting living in like a conservative type of environment. A lot more religion for sure. I mean, not to say that being Mexican, there's a lot of Catholics, within our environment, and then I don't know, even churches. If we go to like to a Christian church, and then we go to like the cat, we do Catholic stuff because of my Mexican side, and then we would do the Christian stuff because of my dad. So it was an interesting time. I got a lot of different variety of stuff. Didn't really understand any of it, but I definitely was involved on both ends there. And so, yeah, I went to Oklahoma. A lot more like religious based stuff. A lot of it was the environments were just different. The culture was just very different. A lot more country music for sure. My dad really upped his NASCAR interest, I would say, when we were in Oklahoma. Um, let's see, Oklahoma. So we were at this one house, and I went to school called Soldier Creek. But we were at this one house, our first house that we lived in Oklahoma. This house was interesting because we had this one neighbor who like would just like one time literally invited, just came in the house. And my mom was like, "What is going on? Why is this lady in here? Hi, neighbor. Do you have this?" Blah, blah. She's like came in and just started talking to my mom. Mom was like, "What happened? Like this lady why should she come in here?" So I freaked her out. And it's like I guess in Oklahoma, just some people are really nice, like to the point where they just, "Hey neighbor, hi," and you're just like, "Whoa, bro, I don't know you. You just came in," because we don't do that in California. You don't just come into people's houses. You're gonna find out someone's not gonna be okay with it. So we lived in this one house. That was an interesting place to live. This was like times where my dad was leaving a lot. So my dad started working on like as an aircraft mechanic, like on like while on planes. So like he would do a lot of missions where he'd be flying out. So he was gone a lot, like 2 weeks out, couple weeks in, months out, couple of weeks in, like depends. Sometimes he'd be on a boat for 8 months, and sometimes he'd be on a plane, like depending on what the job was, right? So this is one of those times where we start not seeing him as often, so then you start having that absence of your dad. And like having a military father, the military really does have an impact on the way it affects people's brains, because it does reinforce those negative stereotypes, like those negative things of like, you need to do this and you need to man up and you need to like, so like they start doing that same type of mentality on their kids, and kids are not at the difference is a soldier is an adult, or at least near the age of an adult. A child is not even close to that. So if a child is acting like an adult, that's because they're acting like an adult. They're not an adult, because if they were an adult, they would just be being an adult. And so when you have a kid that's acting like an adult, that means that's not an adult. That's trauma. That's someone that's been misguided, that's been manipulated, that's been pushed, that's been coerced into having this belief system that's not truly theirs. It's not organic, I would say. So what happens that you see that a lot is they start having these like stereotypes of what it means to be a certain thing, and they start pushing and implementing some of these things into their family dynamics, into their social dynamics. And it makes it difficult because then it takes away from organic, what organic nurture should be, right? What you should feel is right during that time, not what you think is right during that time. Like when your kid is learning who they are, right? It's very important for them to receive that guidance and learning who they are, right? Because they're seeking this, they're looking for it, they're valuing it. So when they seek these things, you support that. Also, modeling healthy balance is what helps them learn it themselves because they say, wow, look, my parent inspires me. I want to be like them. I tell my patients and clients this all the time. Like, if you are anxious or depressed or always tired, right? Whatever, you can say that one too. If you're one of those things, anxious, depressed, or tired, people are not going to respect what you say. They're just fucking not. They're gonna say, "Well, you seem unstable, so I'm not gonna take advice from you." So when people show instability, it actually lessens the respect they get from people around them. So it's important to, remain stable to ensure that you get the respect that you deserve. So yeah, my dad, he was gone on and off, which made again difficult to get that consistency, you know, that role model, you could say. And so what happens in the military then changes these guys, changes their perspective, changes how they view things should be done. They forget that you're a child and they like implement these systems, right? So they don't separate the work from home anymore. And that starts to come out, right? So this influences too the safety and the like security that you have. And another thing that was going on is my dad would rely on drinking to help him cope with his frustration. My mom also didn't help because my mom is very blunt. Let's put it that way. She's very blunt. So she's very direct. Okay. Yeah, she can come off as very you know, her way or the highway. And this is how she was with all of us. So with me, my brother, and my dad. And so there was this like constant stress mechanism that existed within the household because of like the OCD and like control things. Like it has to be this way and you should be doing it this way. You're not putting enough effort. You're not trying hard. It was constantly like, so my dad was also experiencing this too. And at his job as being in the military, right? If you don't show up, you go to jail. So he didn't really have a choice but to like do his best at work. But then because he was always stressing doing that, he'd get home and but my mom being the person, the kind of person she was, he couldn't really relax. So he's always having to work on something, always having to do something. So I can see why he benefited from being away from her because she wouldn't stop nagging him because she didn't have that autonomy of like, oh, this might really frustrate my partner, right? So when someone is constantly nagging and nagging and nagging, it depresses the other partner. So like when people don't work on their self-respect, they don't work on a healthy future or their independence, and again, their self-respect being their consistency, right? And then they don't have passions, hobbies, and interests. They don't have balance in their life. Well, they're going to start becoming very catty and very mean towards people. The problem is when someone doesn't take care of themselves, well, they're also going to have imbalance themselves and they're going to start experiencing whatever the reverse is of their partner, right? So if this person's nagging me, I'm going to get depressed because it's never good enough. I'm never doing enough. Never, never. No matter all the things I do, all of a sudden I'm the worst. I'm because the partner just uses this very blunt, extreme language, right? And they just sit there in that fit of rage. So it's like, dude, like, are we ever gonna get past this? Like, is this ever gonna change? Is this ever gonna get better? And so yeah, you get stuck in this cycle, this pattern where this person doesn't change their pattern of behavior, and you're just like really, is this how it has to go? So it just depresses you and you're just like, okay, I'm the worst, which makes you want to avoid, which makes you not want to be around, which makes you absent, right? As much all this effort that you put in and you want to, get feedback for, and then you're just met with like, yeah, yeah, thanks, or why do you need that compliment or whatever. And you're just like, okay, dude, cool. Right. So I can see where he struggled, right? But he'd be gone a lot. So then mainly it was just like, so what happens, right? Well, when, even though you're only 7, doesn't matter, right? 7 or 8, you become the man of the house when the other man is gone. Like when your mom's like, you're the man now. You have to do these things. You're the man now. And you're like, dude, I'm 7. I just want to like be 7. No, you need to do this. And so the pressure starts to build, right? You need to be the consistent one. You need to be the strong one. You need to be this. You need to be the example for your brother. You need to da 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 da. And so that like tiger mom mentality starts to kick in, and you're just like, dang, dude. Like, and so even though like I put all this effort, I'm always trying. Another thing too. So a couple things that happened in Oklahoma, especially with my academics. I got held back in 3rd grade. I got held back again. So I went to 3rd grade. I think I had went to 4th and I went back to 3rd grade, or I went back to 2nd grade. I was in 3rd grade and I went back to 2nd. I can't remember exactly, but I think it was in 3rd grade and went back to 2nd. So I get held back to 3rd grade. So at this point, like something's going on with me. I hadn't been able to pick up reading, and there's a couple factors. So like when you're getting taught by someone who doesn't speak English naturally and doesn't read very well English, like they're still learning themselves, it makes it very hard to learn your reading when you're reading from home. Also, moving states and moving places made it difficult for me, and I wasn't taught properly how to read. I didn't have the encouragement. I didn't have the insight. I didn't have like a parent that could truly explain it to me, and so that I didn't get that support, right? So I had reading problems from a young age, but also I got diagnosed with attention deficit disorder, and interesting about getting diagnosed with that. So at first I was on Ritalin at some point. Then my mom just took me off of it. Just decided you don't need this. And when we moved back, so a tornado came through Oklahoma City at this time. This tornado ripped apart the city like horribly. There was trucks in trees on top of buildings. Everything was just it hit the base. It just ripped everything. This was like one of like a couple different tornadoes at this point. And my mom is like, I don't care about an earthquake, but I am not living around tornadoes anymore. I don't care. So that was the point where she decided I am leaving. So she left Oklahoma and told my dad, I'm getting out of here. I'm not doing this anymore. So we moved back. I think at this point we had moved back to Mexico. I'm pretty sure at this point we're probably living at my Mexico at this point. And so on and off, I've lived in Tijuana throughout my life, on and off, because of different circumstances, right? So while I'm living in Tijuana, like I'm still like attending school in the States, but because my dad's in the military and everything, but we needed to live in Tijuana to save money because my mom is again like barely making anything. My dad's low rank still, like they're barely making it by. Okay, they're like, so we come live with my grandma, and this is a very special time in my life and place in my life because my grandma, she really is like my first mom. If I had to say that somebody was a motherly figure to me, it would be my grandma. Until this day, she still is my mom. She really was that one person that would always accept me, like for who I was and the way I was. She didn't care, who I wanted to be as long as I was authentic to myself. And she would just accept me. She didn't care. And she just taught me how to be a good person and how someone can just be very authentic and very loving and very just there for you when you just need someone to talk to and non-judgmental. She would always help other people. There was times it would be taking the bus and she would just talk to anybody. She always had, and that was always weird to me, like, why she always talk to people? But she always did. She just would conversate and just have a good time no matter where she went. She just was just a nice person, and always did try to help people. She'd always like save up clothes to give to homeless people, save up food to give to people in need, help families in need, people with kids and stuff that they needed bread and stuff. So any excess, she would always give it away. She always found a way to give to others. She was definitely that grandma that would give you $1 to go get like, some soda and chips from the store. So she's just a very kind and loving person. And she, to me, was someone that just helped me know that there's was good in the world, and just someone that just could accept you, someone that could just genuinely love you and be there for you and just support you. So yeah, she's just a really important part of my life, and I'm really really glad that I got to spend those initial years here living here in Mexico. And another thing that was interesting, I live with my grandpa too. My grandpa, though, we have a different story. My grandpa is like definitely your classic Mexican machista, old school, like, you know, I'm the man of the house. Yo soy el hombre, and I run the place. And then that was just him. He worked for like the same bank his entire career. He's initially from Yucatan, and my grandma's from Sonora, so Hermosillo. And yeah, so he um he was very controlling. He wouldn't let you touch his stuff. He was very like, don't touch my things. And he liked his trains. Grandpa liked his trains, okay? He had his train models. And that was his like all Christmas stuff was always like trains. He liked to collect things. He was a big collector. He liked to travel. But yeah, he was more to himself. You couldn't really get a conversation out of him. There wasn't a lot. But he definitely liked his gadgets. So he always had like direct TV, a fancy TV. He always was like, look at my new TV. Looks nice, huh? Quality. I always wanted to have his computer like, I got the computer and I got the internet. What's up? I'm current. What's up? So yeah, that was definitely my grandpa. Yeah, but I wasn't really close to him. So like I said, he was my grandpa. I love him. He kind of did his own thing. It was just his own. Grandpa was a Rolling Stone, you know what I'm saying? So he just did his own life. But yeah, grandma meant a lot to me. And those years were really interesting too. So that's when I like grew up here. Like I grew up here where literally like I knew the neighbors. I'd go to parties, like toda la fiesta, todo acá en Tijuana, like con mi gente, con mi barrio, con todo acá. So, like yeah, I grew up over here, and it was funny because like my mom, she did teach me Spanish, so she couldn't teach me English very well, but she could teach me Spanish. So I was able to learn Spanish, so I can read and write in Spanish. So it does help. I'm not fluent like if I read all the time, but I definitely can read through stuff and comprehend what's going on. Being in Mexico and living in Mexico and having a lot of clients and patients that speak Spanish and I communicate in Spanish with. It really has expanded my vocabulary. And I live in Tijuana now, so it also helps me with living here to read stuff and be involved in the culture. So it's hard to not learn when you're living in the environment and culture again. So it's kind of nice to be back to my roots. But yeah, I grew up here. I was very close with the neighbors. I had a couple friends, guy friends that I developed close relationships to. We had a neighbor over here next door. We had a neighbor over there, and we became close. We have a couple neighbor kids down the road. We became close with. So there's a lot of guys that I hang out with here. So it's cool to have like these like close friendships, especially living here for so many years. I think I lived here probably like 2 or 3 years straight. And then at some point, so like, I grew up here, had my fair share of meeting the different ladies in the environment, made friends with a lot of them, had a lot of first kisses around here. But that's pretty much it, never nothing serious, nothing past childhood crushes and stuff. So, but yeah, it was definitely a good experience being able to have this like dual cultural phenomenon kind of going on. As far as schooling goes, during this time, I want to say I was going to this school called Maryland Avenue, and it's up here in La Mesa. And it was an interesting time in my life. This is when Matson and Connor come back, or my friends come back. So we ended up having a relationship with their parents, and we were hanging out with them. These are two friends of mine that I had from earlier, and so now we're like, I think my dad ends up coming back at some point from Oklahoma, and he ends up living at their house, so their parents' house. So he's living with them, and then we come and visit. But then we live in Mexico because of my mom. It's easier to let her live with her mom. So we're getting like, you know, we're getting crossed, and my dad's living in the States with Mark. And so that's happening for a couple of years, right? So we're going back and forth. We're living over there. We're going to Maryland Avenue. Again, like making friends, meeting people. I had my first male teacher there. That was really cool, Mr. Crest. This is also when they put me in the GATE program. So, oh, wait, was this the GATE program? I think no. You know what? No, yeah, it was the GATE program. I got put in the GATE program. So there was seminar and there was GATE, and I got put in the GATE program. And so, yeah, Maryland Avenue was an interesting experience for me. This is, I got to do a little bit of expressing myself in my fashion sense. So I became more of myself. I wore the same black Dickies jacket, sweater every day, no matter if it was hot or cold. I didn't care. I was wearing this sweater. You could not make me take the sweater off. So I was always wearing that. Always wearing my Dickie shorts, and then some Osiris's or something, kind of like fat tongue shoe. This is my skater phase. And yeah, Maryland Avenue was a cool place. I met a lot of cool young friends growing up, made a lot of relationships and friendships. I won like a hula hoop competition because I like the hula hoop. I also like to jump rope. I might have even won a jump rope competition at one point too. I think I might have done that too. This is when I was like doing the talent show and stuff. And my school was so racist that they called the music I was singing Ricky Martin, even though the band's called Oof. It was a boy band, but they said it's Ricky Martin. I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, that's kind of racist, isn't it? But okay, just call it something it's completely not. I was like, that's kind of like low key, and they didn't tell me they were gonna say that. They just like said it when I went up there. It's Ricky Martin. But anyway, so that was my taste of getting up in front of the stage and performing in front of a crowd. Right, one of my first solo performances. I did perform in Grant and stuff, but it wasn't the same. Yeah, I mean, at a Soldier Creek, I did perform over there, but this was like the first time I think I got up on stage and did like a solo performance in front of everybody. So that was cool. But yeah, so Maryland Avenue, went there for a couple years. Again, made a lot of cool friends, a lot of initial relationships. A lot of just good times. I can't really complain about that place. It was a very nice school. And again, I got into the GATE program, so that was kind of cool. I tested up in the scores. I always wanted to be a safety patrol person at that school, and I never got it. I never got to be a safety patrol member. But anyways, whatever. This is cool. It's fine. Yeah. Also went to the after school program. So I was like, that's when I first really became a latchkey kid. And I was like, oh, like, and that became most of my life after that. Like just consistently, like always like at school because I couldn't get picked up by my mom because she was also a teacher and traffic and everything, whatever. Right. So yeah, after Maryland Avenue, I went to my parents. We ended up moving into military housing at that point. So we ended up going to, I want to say it was Linda Vista up in that area. And I don't even remember the name of that school. I can't even tell you what school I went to up there. No idea. Anyways, I went to a school in Linda Vista. Right. So we get into military housing. I think it was like a voucher that we got. That's what it was like. It was like housing for military people. So like we got into that and go to this school down the road. And at this point, this is what happens. They were thinking of skipping me a grade at this point. Is this when I get into the GATE program? This is maybe when I get into the gate program. I don't know. Might have been, I don't, at some point I get into the gate program. I'm getting old. All right. So I'm going over here to this school. They're thinking of skipping me a grade. And my mom's like, no, I don't want you to skip a grade. I just want you to be good, doing well, like not challenged. I'm like, but the whole reason you challenge the kids because they're bored and whatever, right? So I end up having to stick out the grade as normal. But this is when I get put into the gate program, right? And it was at this school too, or maybe the school before, but at some point my mom had just straight up said, you don't have ADHD. Like just denied it. So I was like, okay. So then at this point, I'm no longer getting any support for ADHD. Nothing. I'm raw dog in life, bro. I'm fucking going for it. We're just fucking doing it, bro. Anyways, yeah, no meds, no support, no nothing. Just gate program. And the thing about, I don't understand the school system. Like, what? I don't understand, like, how, like, instead of skipping kids' grades, they came up with this cool idea of just like alternative programs, but the same grade, right? Why do they want to keep us in school so long? Why can't, if I want to finish early, why can't I finish early? Like find ways to like help kids get through this crap faster. Like, why are they like sitting there for years doing a more advanced version of the same class when it doesn't matter in the end for their degree anyways? So like, why are we making kids, why not let them finish faster? Why not let them get like more progress done? I don't, anyways, that's a discussion for another day. So yeah, at that point I'm in the gate program. Yay. So I go through school at that Linda Vista place. And then at some point, I get transferred over into this magnet school called Grant. So I'm going to Grant Elementary at this point. I think we're still living at the Linda Vista house. But again, throughout this time, my dad is like in and out, in and out, in and out, right? Like deployments, then he'll be back and then he's gone. And so like his consistency is all over the place. So I'm missing him for times where like these critical times where you wish you had your dad. I'm not getting that. And then like you start becoming a latchkey kid, so we're having to go to the Boys and Girls Club. You know, we're having to like go to the after school, the after school programs, the AMP programs, the whatever. There were so many names for them back in the day. It was before it was prime time, right? I can't remember the name of the other one, but yeah, like you're going to these after school programs, and I'm like spending so much time at school. I'm like, I'm literally just like doing, and it's not like these places are actually like fun. Like they're stressful. They're like, we're going here now. We're gonna do this now. We're gonna just like, it's like an extended part of school. Like, and for granted, like these poor people that are running these programs, bless their souls. They got to work in the morning, in the afternoon, and all that crap, and it's a mediocre job with a bunch of emotional children. I get it. Like we don't want to be, neither one of us want to be there. Okay. We're both miserable. But yeah, so, growing up and as a latchkey kid, you just kind of get used to just never really being around your parent, like, and not relying on them emotionally. So like, you just kind of like get numb. Like, it's not like I could tell my mom anything because it is anything I would talk to her about. She'd just be like, well, just don't worry about that. Well, just don't worry about that. And you're just like, that's not helpful. Like, that's not how, like, that doesn't work. But you couldn't talk to her. And then when my dad would be back, you couldn't talk to him either in the same sense because he had his own version of like how he had like struggled, like like if he drank too much, you couldn't talk to him because then it was like you weren't even talking to him. Or if he's stressed out, you don't want to talk to him. Or if my mom stresses him out, you're not going there were certain times we could definitely like have a good conversation with him. I would say more him than my mom. But the thing is, like when he's stressed out from work, from my mom, from all this stuff he's dealing with, I get it. His brain's fried too. So we're both fried. We're both having issues. So yeah, it was just growing up, dealing with latchkey programs, after school programs. I mean, I swear I was in like every school's program. I was in it. Like throughout time. I think I finally, like, when I reached high school, I finally was able to, like, well, maybe even middle school, because the where the middle school was, I was able to finally kind of be left alone. Yeah, middle school, because middle school is different. So I'm going to Linda Vista, and I go to Grant, and Grant is a magnet school. And now what's interesting about Grant, so at this point, we end up moving from Linda Vista, and we moved to our house down in, we moved to, what's it called? We might have even been in Mexico again for a time. So I can't remember if we went to Mexico a couple times. This might have been another one of those times. So at some point we leave the Linda Vista house, and now it's time to go to what's the other? I ended up moving to Paradise Hills. So PH. So I moved to Paradise Hills, and I can't remember if we lived in Mexico right before that or if we moved directly to Paradise Hills. I can't remember. There might have been an intermedium like schedule there where we went to Grant for a bit without being in the States or whatever, kind of doing the whole the other person's house. And then we moved to Paradise Hills, and this is when I started getting bused from the hood out to the good schools. So you used to know that, but the way these schools worked was the further out you were of your zip code, the more likely you were to get into school. So they wanted to, like, bring kids from different areas. So I was a kid that got bused from, like, the hood. I didn't know it at the time, but I lived in the hood. And so I get bused to, like, the nice schools, quote unquote. And yeah, that was the first time I actually didn't have to go to an after school program. So I got to actually participate in going home and, like, getting bused home. And then at some point, I ended up going to another school called Correa Middle. And that's kind of like when middle school really starts. So like my elementary school years, those were like interesting because there were like the main things that happened in my elementary school years. My dad being in and out constantly, moving to Oklahoma with Matt getting diagnosed with ADHD. My parents having those fights in and out. They had a very uh, challenging relationship. Yeah, nights where they would just be fighting going on all night, and you're just like sitting in bed, like, or like having your ear to the door, you know, pretending like you're asleep so you don't get in trouble. Yeah. So yeah, like my elementary school years, like overall, it was kind of like just mild, like a lot of just latchkey. Like I was at school mostly. Like a lot of those years, I just spent at school. And then even when I wasn't at school, I was in like some kind of thing like soccer or an instrument class or like karate or whatever, something. My mom always had us in some kind of thing after school, boys and girls club. We were always in something. So no matter what, like we had to be in some kind of program. She always had us signed up for something. Like we didn't have a choice. So yeah, I was kind of always doing something as a kid. But again, it wasn't like a like family time. It was more like curriculum time. It was more like productivity time, like doing something for school, doing something for your college, doing something for your personal development, like you know always doing something, but very little like just chilling and hanging out. It wasn't a lot of that. Like we didn't have a lot of family outings. If we were doing a family outing, we were going to Ross. Pero no pides nada. Don't ask for anything. All right, mom. I'll be good. But yeah, like I would say my mom had the easiest time when we were younger because that's the age she worked with closely. So that was like the easiest time for her. Like, cause we did what she said in a way because we were just like little kids. There was definitely some challenges with my brother because he had like gotten kicked out of school and stuff, a couple like classes and stuff. He had been throwing some chairs around. Yeah, he had some emotional struggles growing up. He was very like hot tempered, and he did not like hearing the word no. And he was definitely going to do whatever he wanted. If he had a desire, he was definitely going to complete on that desire. So yeah, he was just a very strong-willed individual, you could say. And yeah, again, those are like the beginning years of my life, like elementary school. I was never more out of school for more than 4 years, so I was always going changing, which makes you essentially into chameleon. You're like adaptable. Like everywhere you go, you have to like learn what people are into, learn differences, learn changes, like adapt. I remember at one point I got called a poser because I just wanted to fit in. And so I would just go along with what people said and they would lie just to kind of like manipulate and then show like, see this kid's lying or whatever. But it's really because you're just trying to fit in and you want to make friends and it ends up biting you. And these kids, they're just kids. Like obviously they don't understand, you come from a household that's not super complete. You've been moving around several years. They don't know what kind of traumas and backgrounds that you're dealing with, and you don't know what kind of traumas and backgrounds they're dealing with either, right? So again, it's like a mixture of things. And so from a young age, I got bullied. I got called poser. I never really fit into the Mexican groups or the American groups. There was always like a challenge with who I could fit in with. Living down here in Mexico, but not being a part of the school really made it hard to fit in around the kids because when you're in the US, you're being fed one type of culture from the kids because you're in school with them all day and you're being educated on the same topics and you're talking about the same kind of political factors and celebrities and whatever, right? But then when you're in Mexico, like they got a whole different culture over here. Like they got a whole different set of like people they follow, things they're into, cultural factors happening, events that are taking place that are more relevant to them because that's their dominant culture. So they're going to hear the main stories. I'm over there in the States, so I'm here all like everything happened in the States, but I really don't know what's going on in Mexico, like especially like political landscape or any kind of like news stuff. I don't have any idea. So like there's this cultural divide that happens when you're living in this duality between these two different places. And so yeah, it does have an impact on like how you socialize and how you get along with people. So I oftentimes felt like I didn't understand my culture. Like people tended to like have a type of culture and I didn't know what mine was. Like sometimes we celebrated this, but sometimes it was this. It was like I had two parents that really didn't have like a strong identity in what their culture was. And so I really didn't have like it was like I had a mom that was trying to be an American and I had a dad who really didn't like who well, I guess he wasn't really even around. So like how could I had a mom that wanted to be an American, but I didn't have a dad to teach her how to be an American, really. So it was like a weird combo of like you just have a parent that's like playing the role, of like America, like this is what Americans do, because like she was an American, like she didn't come here till she was an adult. She didn't come from the United States. My dad was raised here his whole life, right? He was in the military. He literally was the United States, like he was the USA, right? America, fuck yeah, right? Hell yeah. He gave Top Gun a new meaning. Go dad. So yeah, he my mom wanted to be an American, but she was a Mexican. Wanted to be an American. So growing up in that culture too, and that's the crazy part about coming from a mom that's Mexican and you are an American is that like you're trying to adopt to the dominant culture and she's like holding you back, like no, that's not how you do it. You're like, but everybody else, like this is normal. No, it's not. But like literally everybody does this. No, like for example, skateboarding, right? Like I really on the skateboard, it was like, no. I'm like, or like even skate culture. Like I always liked that style. Like that was always like appealing to me. And she was like, no, never. But rebellious teenager. Like I said earlier, my mom's years were good for the beginning years, but when we start getting closer to those later years, things start to change a bit. And so, yeah, as I continue the podcast, I continue my later episodes. We're going to revisit more of my childhood, then we'll get grown to the teen years, and we'll kind of go from there. So I'll just kind of let the experience happen organically, and I'll take you guys on my developmental journey, and you will learn about all the little ins and out stories that created my development of today. But yeah, so thanks for coming along. We'll keep exploring my upbringing and the things that have influenced me and helped me become the person that I am. And again, we'll revisit stories. We'll add some new stuff and context. And yeah, thanks for coming. And I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Okay, take it easy. Later.